So the real difference between mixed media and watercolor paper, the watercolor paper is actually to hold your watercolors, because what you can do is you can reactivate them, bring them up, lighten them, like actually on the paper. When you have mixed media, it kind of sits on top and it's hard to lift it and get that same effect. The better quality the watercolor paper, the more dense the paper, which means you can activate it a little bit more, or you can have more pooled water on it to create different effects. But we'll be talking a little bit about like just being able to lift something and leave it throughout the workshop. Hi, hola Patricia.
Okay.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
We're doing flowers, right?
Yeah.
In case.
Yeah, it's flowers today, or right now. And then this afternoon, I figured we'd do flowers in the morning and charcoal in the afternoon, so we weren't super messy for the next one. So I have 4 pieces of 11 by 15 watercolor paper, and we're gonna work on this image that I have with the today. We're just gonna work on this image. It's the one with the 4 bouquets. So we'll do some warm-ups where we just look at what brushes we have a look at different brush strokes, layering. So we'll spend just 15-20 minutes doing that. And then we'll choose a couple of them to do larger pieces, one a little bit faster than the other, but we'll work on 2 at the same time, because there's no point in just leaving and sitting there waiting for the watercolor to dry. So if you have at least, we don't have time to let it just sit and dry. We can work on another one. If you are like Patricia, she's probably going to work on all 4 at once.
No. I don't have enough space to do that.
You don't have enough paint or paper.
Space.
Hola, Heike. Hi, Heike.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I need to do better with the Padlet. I need to find out the.
It's not in Padlet.
I know.
No.
No wonder.
Yeah, it's just in the chat.
Patricia.
I just put the images in the chat because it's just a workshop, so just 2 classes. I figured all the images that we'll be using is in the chat.
We'll see. Much better.
Yeah.
Okay. I found it too.
Yeah. So if you want to save them and go bigger, Alessandra.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
How is everyone?
Good. I'm recording this already, but you made me cry on Saturday. Oh no, Friday. What a
That
sweet
was the
lady.
best story ever.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep after hearing about it. I was so excited. I was like,
It was
Why?
so lovely. Okay, so Friday I had my show. You missed it, Patricia. You missed so much when you were away.
I know.
So I had my show on Friday. I'll just quickly tell you the story because we're just at 10, but I'll quickly tell it. So I had my show. This lady arrives and she's chatting to me and she's like going, "Oh, I love this. This is so pretty. Oh, so," and I said, it looks like you really appreciate art. And she's like, "I do." She goes, "I have a story for you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And she's like, a couple of years ago, actually a few years ago, 2016, I was like on the internet and I found this lady and she had this website and I was like, "Oh, it's beautiful." And then I wrote to her and said how lovely her work is. And then she wrote me back straight away. And then we kept writing and writing and writing. And it's been now 7 years or 6 years that we've been writing to each other. And she's like, and then she pulls out this piece of paper and it's like my flyer. And I don't know if it's a screenshot of like of the Zoom class or something like that. Anyway, oh no, it was the class. And she's like, look at this. And I'm like, oh my God, like, who is it? She's like, and she told me the story about how this lady, she invited her into her home in Chicago. And I'm like, it's Alexandra. And I'm like, you know Alexandra. And anyway, both of us like started tearing up. This lovely lady, she was so like, oh, she was so lovely. Linda, her name's Linda. And it's just odd because Alexandra obviously saw that I had my show in Oshawa, and she knows this lady lives around this area and says, please go and say hi to Charlotta. So
Cute.
anyway, yeah, it was cute. It was very cute.
It's a small world.
It's a
It is.
super small world.
It is.
Super small world. Anyway, hi Beth. Hi Susan. Okay,
I'm so excited you're doing florals, Char. So excited.
Well, somebody, Michelle, said if you're doing a floral class, I'll take it. So I'm like, okay, we'll do a floral class.
They're happy. It's happy.
It is very happy. Okay, so I'm going to spotlight mine, and please feel free to ask questions as we go. And please feel free to stop me because it's a longer class, so we have lots of time.
Uh-huh.
All right, so you have images. We're just going to really work from this one. Sorry, everything's falling down. Oh, hang on a second. I'm just going to plug my phone in because I don't want it to have lots of things falling down. I don't want it to lose battery.
I have to say something about the happy.
Yeah.
Everything around you is happy.
Aw,
It's not the florals. It's everything around you.
yeah.
Thank you. Not everything, because just before I got logged on, it wasn't so happy. But anyway,
Yeah, but when we're around, pues, when
when
we're
I step
around.
into my studio, it's my happy space. And that is, you know,
Exactly.
that's what makes me happy. Being with you guys. Thank you, Patricia.
Well, now I have my brownie points. We can start.
Now you can paint whatever you want and I won't be mad at you. All right. So we have, I did add some other images, but we're going to work on these because I figured it's really nice to have something that you can focus in on different images. They have kind of the same style. We're not moving around too much, but what we're going to do is if you have a few different brushes, so you can see mine, I have a big one. It's actually the Hemi brush, but I know that it holds the water differently to a regular brush. Actually, I'll pick a couple of squares as well. So I have a couple of long brushes, which are really good. You may not have a long brush, but that's okay. If you have anything like, I don't know, a feather or anything that would make a really lovely long mark, that's always pretty as well. I have a tiny one for any details. I have a size 5, which is close to my favorite size, which is usually a 4. I have a size 8 round and another size 5 with a better tip on. And then another line one. So I have actually a couple of different line ones. So what we're going to do to get started is looking at the colors that you have in these images and the shapes that you have. I just want to spend just 15 minutes mixing up colors and looking at the shapes and the brush strokes that you can do to create these different shapes within the floral arrangements. Not thinking too much about the composition because we'll do that afterwards, but really just take your watercolor paper. I'm using Canson XL. Some people love it, some people don't. You can use whatever you have. I'm also got Kuretake paints, and I have my favorite Winsor & Newtons, which has a little bit of crayon in there. So I have both of these, and I'm going to start with the bigger shapes because then I can, as you'll see, when I'm doing the bigger shapes, those are my, if you've taken my classes before, it's nice to get the big shapes done and all the shapes done, and then go into those shapes and create the textures and the light and dark, tonal work, etc. We do not have to worry too much unless we're doing this one right here about, or these little white bits, things like leaving white areas. So work very lightly. If you are thinking about the white areas, don't worry about them right now because we're just literally just playing around with shapes. So if you want to mix one color, I'm going to mix like a light green color. So I'm going to take a yellow and put quite a lot of water in my pan. It does really help to have a mixing pan, or you can just have a plate, anything. And then I'm going to take, I have an emerald green that I'm going to add to this. It's a little bit muted, but that's okay. And I'm going to look at this shape, for example, right here. Oh, Janet's just coming in.
So the idea is to do the four or not necessarily.
Not right now. For 15 minutes, I just want you to play with what brushes you have in front of you so that you understand what shapes you can get. So we're just separating the flowers and the shapes right now. And then after 15 minutes, we'll sketch out the bouquet on 2 different pages, 2 different bouquets, and we'll start painting those. So right now it's literally just a play of color and shape. So for example, if I was going to do this big one, I would look at the shape that I have in front of me, let that dry. You can paint wet on wet, but when it's something like this that has a really, really dark contrasting line, you want to let the light color dry completely before you start putting the other colors on. You'll see that once I show you how to work on this one, then you'll see why I'm letting it dry. And then with the same color and the same brush, don't be fooled by a big brush can also do really lovely thin strokes as well. So it's okay to try using your brush for different size strokes and keep it nice and fresh. You'll see if you're using a big brush that your paint pools. That can be a benefit and something against you. Like if you want it just one tone, you're not going to get that with the brush that pools water, because this tone is going to dry a lot darker than something that didn't pool. So with florals, I don't think you should worry about this so much because it's actually nice to have that change in tone. If you have a big brush, also try putting the tip to the page and pushing down. Actually, this is not gonna, you're not gonna be able to see this, so I'm gonna just make it a bit greener. Push it down and then lift it up. You get really beautiful leaf shapes. So try using your brushes in different ways to get almost like a one stroke wonder. I'm going to use a round brush. Try adding different colors to it, maybe adding a little bit of brown. And then maybe this is something somewhere else in your piece that you could add, or also think about if you have a flat brush or a round. This is almost like a round flat. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but I like doing circles with these because they're a little bit wider and you can do really nice marks with that. And also from the side, you can get very uniform brushes as well. Okay, so then I've got a long brush, which I was actually using this morning. Hi, Jennifer, by the way. So with the long brush, good morning. We're working with your different brushes that you've got so that you can see the kind of marks that you can make with them. This is a half long, this is a longer one. But what happens is it holds a lot more water so that you can do a longer brush stroke. And you don't have to wait or reattach another line when you're working with your brushes if they're a little bit longer. So the line brushes are really lovely for that as well. What else do we have? I have a small square. The small squares I like because you can turn it to the side and then turn it. It's almost like a calligraphy style. So you can have it and then pull it down and get a completely different brush stroke. So these are great for any leaves or, you know, long leaves that you're doing. Piper is very noisy today. Sorry, everybody. And then the classic round brush, which I use a lot. So I'm just going to go back to this flower again. So what I would do is I would leave it alone until it dries and then look at the different color, for example, that's on the inside. And when you have two tones like this, you can either wet it and then add more color to make it darker, but you can also clean your brush off completely and work into the drier side and kind of bleed in your color into that area. So if you've taken my cup class before, my bowl class, I do a lot of that. I like the crispness that the dry on dry gives you, but you can also manipulate the dry into the wet to get that the softness of the two, the darker and the lighter tones. And then you could go over just to create your little details, but that can be done right at the end. So things like that. And then if you want to, because this is wet here, if you wanted to go in darker again, you can just add your color onto the wet. But because this is dry, it's not going to bleed into there. So that's why I do a lot of waiting for those first layers to make sure that I don't have those bleeds. Sometimes the bleeds are nice, but sometimes you don't want them in certain spots. So a lot of times we may be waiting for things to be drying, but that's okay because we're going to work on two at one time. Something else that I wanted to say, don't be afraid of really looking at your contrasts. Use the squint your eye technique because there is a huge contrast between that side of the petals, like the outside of the petals and the inside of the flower. So, you know, think about those things as you go. On the side of this flower, it would be really, really dark, but that way the lighter flower will just like pop. You may want to put a colored full background on, and this way everything, especially if you're doing white flowers, you kind of need that background so that the white pops out as well. When you're working on smaller flowers, like groups of flowers, I'm just going to mix up a little bit of like a rusty orange color. You can also use the tip of your brush to create little textures. So, you know, explore a lot with your brushes and the different you have to almost treat your brushes like a pencil or a pencil crayon so that you can really capture different textures. And what we're going to do is we're going to think about what goes underneath and what stays on top. So the layering between your looking at the lightest colors first, especially when we're working with watercolors, and then coming really dark and into them right at the end. and just to make everything pop. But you can still keep it very muted. It doesn't have to be super bright, but you use the colors that you love using. All right, so I think I have talked enough about that. I am going to choose number 2, which is this one here. And I think I'm going to choose, I really love, and you can create your own too. So if you like certain things on one bouquet, then use that on one bouquet. So for example, I love this green flower on the right hand side, but I don't love the white. So what I may do is combine this number 4, we'll just call that number 4, with number 1. So I may take number 4 and some aspects of number 1, some florals. I love these on the left hand side and those ones. So number 2, definitely we'll start with number 2 so that you can, and I'm going to turn this so that it is actually bigger in the screen for you guys if you only have a small display. I'm going to take a new piece of paper and I'm just going to sketch it out really lightly with pencil. You don't want to, what you can just go straight in with watercolors, but we have time to sketch it out. So we'll sketch it out. Move things around. Does anybody have any questions before we start?
How can I mute colors?
How can you mute colors? Okay, so
Yeah.
you want to, so say you're working with a green, you want to
Mhm.
add the complementary color, which is red, to the green. So just
Okay.
a tiny, tiny little bit. So if you're working with a blue and you want it a little bit more muted, you add a tiny little bit of either purple or yellow, or orange rather, sorry, orange. You need to add a tiny little bit of orange and then it'll mute it, but really tiny little bit until you get it to be a muted color. So try it.
Yeah.
A lot of mine become muted just due to my palette being so messy. I think that's probably. Okay, I'm going to move this over as much as I can so that you can see my palette. I don't need this in screen. I'm going to start by sketching it just out with pencil first, and then I will probably be using, do you want me to use, maybe I'll use Kuritaki's for one and the Winsor & Newton for the other so that you can see 2 different palettes. So I'll use.
Are the Kuritakis are brighter, is that right? More
The
vibrant?
Kuritakis are definitely brighter, and I would say they're, they can go more towards gouache because if you add the white, they definitely become more opaque. They're more saturated in color for sure. So we will see, but you can mute them and use them just like a watercolor set. All right, so I'm going to sketch this out. I am going to leave a little bit of white around the border. So I am going to put a little line where I want my top to be of my florals and a little line where I want my bottoms to be. And it's actually almost exactly the same size as here. But what I would do is look at where the floral area, like the main area is in the piece, and just look at that. And I need definitely some room at the top for the longer leaves, but this is the approximate size of my main area of florals. And then I have my stalk down here, or all the stalks, and they're wrapped with, I don't know if it's twine or another stalk. And then I have my long leaves. So it's a quick sketch in the means of, I just need a rough idea where these florals are, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just putting circles or shapes where these individual florals are. If I look at the shapes and the colors, again, there are white flowers in here. So those are going to be, I'm not going to touch the paper where those are. So I'm going to be using a lot of my negative space with those, something that we work a lot with. So those are going to be negative space. And it. My florals could have been a little bit further down, but I'm going to just leave it like that. And maybe I'll put another one that sticks out over here just to balance it out a little bit. So by putting a line at the top and a line at the bottom, this, instead of doing a whole like rectangle around your page, this always helps you proportion whatever you're drawing. So I do that a lot if I'm putting more than one object in a page as well. It's great to make sure you leave room on the bottom and the top, and you don't have like things just jumping off of your image. Okay, so looking at the piece, I want to look at the lightest areas. Pick one color and see where else it is within your image. So I'm going to look at, there's a tan, like a color that this, I think it's a lily. And it's almost like a cream tan color. So I'm going to mix that, and I'm going to use my Winsor and Newtons for that too. So I'm going to mix a yellow. Now I'm picking up a lot of colors that are already on my palette. I have a little bit of a sienna in there that gives it a little bit of warmth, and also a bit of umber. And then what I'll do is I'll just take a lot of water. If you want to, you have your test page. So what you can do is just make a little test. So that is definitely too dark. So what I would do is just clean my brush off and take a little bit of the pigment, make it a lot lighter. So I have my light color that I'm going to use. And this is where, so you can always erase your pencil marks, but now I'm going to look at the shape of the flower as I paint. I'm also going to put this color underneath, see where the little pink flowers are, because there is a tone of the little round bits that is this color. So I want to get that on. And all these stalks, I'm just going to put this color straight on because I know that I can go over with the other colors. So I'm going to add that. And then also some of these grasses at the bottom, or the little petals coming off of that flower. Almost creating like a base coat of some of my colors, and this helps me when I come back in. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of green. I want a very light green, so I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to my green. Again, if you add a tiny little bit of red, cadmium red, or it could be a sienna to your green, you can mute it a lot. And now I'm going to go over all these little side bits. They look like tic-tac-toe game pieces, I think.
I used to love that.
Did you really? See, my sister was into that, and I didn't. She loved it as well, and I didn't. I think it was past my generation. I don't know what we got into, yo-yos or. So I'm making a little ball and then pulling down to the center for these. And because the white flowers are just behind these, I am going to try and pay attention to just with this same color, because I can go darker. I'm going to look at the negative space around those flowers because it's pretty much green. And this is going to help me just sketch out those flowers as well while I'm down here. Make a little ball, and then I pull down to the stalk. And this way I get those shapes that I like, that I can see in my piece. May actually be able to just work on this one. There's a lot going on in this one. I mean, we'll work on the other one too, but not to flip-flop between them, because right now my flower down here is dry. So that's the benefit of working on a larger piece. So you can just keep moving from one element to the other, which is really nice. I find painting flowers very relaxing. It's almost like painting bowls. You just move your way through it, build your image and your piece. So there are some green areas behind these, and I know that the reds are going to fall over the top. So I'm going to just put those in as well. And this round, it definitely has a little bit more blue, this kind of conical oblong shape. But just when you're doing something like this one, look at the edges, how they're a little bit spiky, and try and get those straight away. So this is where the playing with the brush really helps, because think about how you can approach putting that color onto your page, and then you don't have to do that again. So all these little spikes, I probably won't have to come back in and do more. Mine is a little bit dark. I wanted it a little bit lighter. So what I'm going to do is rinse my brush off. Notice how I haven't even changed my brush size yet. So I'm going to lift the paint off. So I'm washing my brush off and pulling the paint up of the area that I've just put down, because there are little lighter areas in this shape. And I know that I'm not going to be able to put white on top. I'm trying to paint with watercolor how I should be painting with watercolor, which is leaving the lightest areas and moving around those areas with darker to create so that the light stands out. There are grasses back here. I'm going to wait until these are dry. I'm going to move over to the little yellow flower on the left-hand side. That too, you could do much lighter than what it seems. And I'm going to just test it here. That's a little bit too dark, so I'm going to put some more water and make it lighter, because I want an undertone so that I can add the brighter yellows on top afterwards. I have some greens over here, so I'm going to move back to my greens, which I didn't think about doing when I was doing the right-hand side. If you are painting near an area which you have just put paint on, try and leave a teeny tiny white line, so that, like, white line meaning an area of paper where you're not touching the other color. So it's almost like a line of paper between the two colors, because this way they won't bleed, and you really don't see that once you've finished your piece. So that's my way of getting around not having to wait between those. This area where the flowers are, I'm going to look at the negative space, and even though I know this is not dark enough, I'm still going to just give it a little bit of color so that I can see where these flowers are. Little grass on the left-hand side. And I said I was going to add a few more grasses on this side just to balance it out. So I'm going to use my green and add those as well. So I'm putting pressure down and then lifting my brush up to create a nice point for my grasses over on this side. And I'm going to put one down here as well, like that. This is still wet up here. We can move back down to the first flower that we were doing. And I'm going to just mix up almost like a beige tone And because I have the test sheet here, I can have a look how much darker it is. So I'm going to go over with that. And I'm looking at the sides and the shapes that this color makes. So you're not necessarily, I'm not necessarily, because I'm definitely not, thinking about the structure of the flower. I'm more looking at the texture of the flower. If I see, for example, a darker area in one area, or if I see a grouping of little lines, or so I'm not looking at the structure, because really it's all about color and shape. And if I start thinking about the structure of the flower, then it's going to be a drawing more than a painting. So I'm going to add a tiny little bit of pink, my beige, and I'm going to use that to go over these lines here, and maybe side ones too. Back here, I'm going to pull that across. So if you are using watercolor paper, you should be able to lift a color if you're going over color. So there was 2 lines underneath this, but because I'm going over with this color, you can lift the bottom colors so that you don't see those stripes. So sometimes you can go over colors. It's best to leave your lights as light as possible. And with this same pink, just going to look at, oh, I need a little bit pinker, so I'm going to just mix up a fresh pink and then come into the flower on the right hand side or in the middle with the little groupings. I'm not sure exactly what kind of flower that is. If anybody knows, you can tell me. With these little tiny lighter areas, and this is why I've left this area quite light, because then I can leave the lighter areas of this flower that color. Then come back in with a smaller brush and make a little bit more detail. So here we're just keeping it really loose. I'm going to use this same pink and come down into the stalks. The stalks can be layered. I'm looking at the darker ones right now on the left-hand side. Know that I want to bring in some greens as well down here. Petal that comes across one. Add a little bit of pink to these little stems of this flower. I think I have enough pink in. I want to make, because this is dry right now up here, so I want to make a gray bluey green, actually a little bit more purpley green. So I'm adding my blue and my pink together. And I have a cobalt blue and a rose pink. And then I'm going to add the emerald green to that. Oh, you're probably not seeing that. And I'm going to actually add a little bit more. Quite a messy palette painter. I don't really think about washing off my brush, and then not, like, my greens and my yellows become very messy. But they're very easy to clean, so I don't worry about it too much. Going to push and pull up and get some of these beautiful leaves in back here. And go even darker afterwards. Back here. And there's some in the foreground, but I'm going to wait to do those because they're really in the foreground. So you want to think about things that are in the background, and then use anything that you need to put in. Use your darker tones for the foreground, like if there are leaves in the foreground, those can be done right at the end. With this same color, I'm going to down here again. So mine isn't exactly as the picture, but I'm okay with it not being exactly the picture.
I'm glad.
And Patricia's like, oh, good, because mine's not exactly the picture either.
I don't know if this is flowers or shoes or what.
You're funny. I'm sure it's beautiful. Okay, so this one has now dried as well. So if you look at it, there's a pattern, and the easiest way for me to do something like this would be to look at, it's almost like a pineapple. Instead of thinking about each individual one, I look at the pattern, what the shape is, leave the little areas in between. And then what I can do is just irregulate and make these look like those little florals that are just stuck. I don't know. I think it looks a little bit like a cactus or something like that, but I'm not sure. I'm sure it's not a cactus. Is it a thistle? Maybe somebody
It's
knows.
a thistle.
It
Yeah.
looks like a thistle, doesn't it? This is the way that I would do it, but maybe you have a easier way of doing this. And with a dark, you can go even darker, but we're gonna wait until right at the end and do that. So I'm gonna take the same color, like wet, and just go in between of these stalks at the bottom here. And mixing up a blue and a brown, because I know that I could wait to put this really dark area in. I'm still with my big brush. I do like this big brush, but I'm going to come right in here. I think it just keeps me from being really niggly and I can just enjoy what happens with the paint and let it just flow in within the piece. So there are some darker areas back here, so I can come in here and just darken these areas. Also in between the white flowers, it's definitely much darker. Almost like an emerald. You just have to keep moving around your piece and looking where the darker areas are, where the lighter areas are. Can you add sharp edge in some places. For example, right here, I know that this leaf is way over, or this petal is a lot further over, but I'm going to use this dark green to just darken some of these areas down here behind there. Those are added, so don't worry about if you need to, you know, elaborate a little bit on your piece. And also I can take this and darken in between thistle edges. So you're slowly building your image. And you can go right in there and, you know, get some colors on. And I'm sure the gouache is going to be quite different when we use the gouache, because it's going to be a little bit bolder right from the beginning, because you are, you can go over the top of your colors. Okay, so I just added a little bit of the pink into this green. Darkening some of these grasses back here. Everyone at about the same level, or the same like point in your piece?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patricia,
wish.
which number are you on?
I'm the same one.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't look anything like yours, but never mind.
So we're going to go over to the, no, it really doesn't matter, because you have your style and I have my style. So I'm going to go over to the yellow flower, and I'm just making little rows of brighter yellow in here. Create a little bit of texture. And there really isn't a couple of these green green circle or green areas here on the right hand side. I don't know what these flowers are. I should probably have looked up all the flowers so that I could give you names of the flowers, or consulted with like C or Alexandra for flowers.
Does it
Or
look?
corbies.
Does it need to look like the flower?
Oh, I don't think they need to look like the flower, but it would be nice to know the name of the flower so that I could say, I'm working on not the tic-tac-toe flower, but that's the one that
Like the idea of the tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, okay. We'll keep it as a tic-tac-toe flower. So I have a darker green than I was working on initially, and I'm looking at the light and just putting it on the right hand side so that the light is obviously coming from the top. So this will give a little bit more dimension even underneath on the stalks as well, just on one side. I like giving a little bit more dimension to my pieces. You know, I like a lot of light and dark and contrast. So this helps it as well. And I can just add, this should be a lot darker here. And these areas here in the background, I'm just going to leave them this color. I may put a couple of grasses over the top because I want them to be pushed back. I want these elements here on the right-hand side, the tic-tac-toes, to be in the foreground. So that's why I'm putting more detail on them. And I'm going to leave some others, just leave them and push them back and not worry about them. I have a pooling of, this is what I do sometimes too. If you have a pooling of color and you can pick it up from that area and move it around to a different area, then you're helping the drying time by lifting that color off and putting it somewhere else. And two, if that's the color that you need, then, you know, it's a win-win basically. So think about that. If you do have a lot of pooling in some areas, lift it up, move it to where it could be, or another area where you could add it. You have areas like I have areas here, for example, which are definitely too open. I'm going to take that color that's pooling and I'm just going to add 2 little marks that look like the underneath of these white flowers, just to fill that space. Sometimes you have to just, you know, think, oh, I need to fill that. That doesn't look right, or that doesn't look like there's even a flower there. So I'm going to add something to that area. So don't worry about if it's, like I said, if it doesn't look exactly like it, just look at the whole picture and will come to mind if you need to add something. I'm going to add a little bit more brown and green and try and get a nice dark green. Again, I'm going to come back down into this area. Is it dark enough? Maybe I need to add a little bit of blue. On here, how dark is that I'm going to add it. Also, my watercolors are not always really, really watery. So I like them to be almost like, I say double cream consistency, but I'm not sure even if this is double cream consistency, but it's definitely at a point where it moves across the paper, but it's not running. Like it's not, I like it a little bit more drier, especially at this stage when I start adding a lot more contrast. Adding to the sides of and little areas, sides of the flower, in between petals. If I can see, it's a little bit darker. My yellow flower on the left did not get very yellow, but I'm going to leave it mustard like this because I don't want to, I actually don't mind the color amongst my other colors. So I'm just going to leave it like that. I want to work on this area here. So I'm just going to look at maybe tiny little brush strokes that give it a little bit more texture. And then some grasses that maybe come out from there. Why I even drew these pins, but these pins are here, so I'm going to add them. Look like sewing pins. I guess it's to keep the twine together underneath here. And just, you don't need to do this either. It could have been left like that. Add some green stalks down here. The bottom of okay.
And you never do, you never put water the paper first, no?
Well, not massively. Like like if I think I've said this because yeah, I think you ask a lot that I don't do it because I like the control. I think I'm a bit of a control freak. So I think that's probably why.
Nah,
Nah.
nah.
I mean, I do like if it's a larger area, like if it's then I will, for example, like a sky or something, I'll put water first so that I get a unified color. But I do like having the control and being able to be able to add water quickly. Like I find it takes too long to dry as well when you do that.
Mm. Yeah.
So I'm going to, these are added afterwards. So I'm going to just add a tiny little bit more green to them on one side. This is a flower right here. I think I need to add, I need to water down my green and make a very light green, make sure that it is a nice light green, and just maybe add some petals or shapes of petals or lines in this color for the white flowers. Because even though I wanted to leave them completely white, I think I need to give them some shape and form. I'm not loving this flower, so it is a little bit of a light color flower anyway, but I'm going to add a tiny little bit more of this greeny beige, like a very light one, and just make the flower my own and make sure that it looks like a flower. I'm just bringing these lines out. They look a little bit more like petals now. It gives it a little bit more texture, makes it a little bit more interesting. I'm going to mix up a gold, which is, I use yellow and a tiny little bit of burnt sienna. Almost like it's almost like an ochre gold color. And I'm going to use that on this one right here that I'm struggling with, and put a little bit more texture in those lighter areas. Just don't want it to look flat basically when I'm finished with it. I want each area to have its own little something special. Oh, I think I am almost finished. I'm going to take this red, which is, I think it's the burnt sienna. I can check what red that is. Oh no, it's not. It's the Indian red that I have here. And just add it to certain pieces because I want this to be in a lot of the whole image. I'm just dotting it around. Putting it even in the leaves up here. On the tips and on one side. These here as well, a little bit of a line. And this will just bring the image. Actually, I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of blue to this same Indian red because I want a really dark
Hmm.
Lots of sighs from Patricia.
Oh, yes. It's horrible.
No, I'm sure it's not.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm not a floral lady, actually. I've decided. All these little bits and pieces.
But you can make it your own with your own style, Patricia.
I know, but that's the problem.
Probably did do it in your own style, and it's probably beautiful. I'm just
Oh.
adding a few little leaves just to break up. So I have this area here, and I'm going to just put this. I have like it's a purpley bluey color. I'm just breaking up of the elements just because I think it's natural that you would have a few little branches or leaves that just break up the image. And those can go over the top. Make this a little bit darker. I like that there's a little bit of light on this one on the right hand side, but I can make right here darker underneath. I think this one is pretty finished. So if you are ready, we can start on the other one. We can go through everybody's and I can tell you what you could maybe work on for your next one, if you're interested in that, or if you want to wait until the end.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, we'll do that then. And if you don't want to show yours right now, that's fine as well. Mine went a little bit darker, but mine always goes a little bit darker, but that's fine. Okay, Patricia, we'll go to you. Maybe if you turn your cameras off, if you don't want to show, and leave your cameras
That's
on. if you don't want to show.
wonderful.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful.
But
So
it's a,
okay, so what I would suggest, like if you even when you're using the bright colors,
mhm,
right now it's just one plane. So you have a lot of the same kind of brush strokes. You have the same kind of definition. So from here, like you could push back, like in between your flowers, you could push back and go even like a little bit darker, or next time, make sure that when you're using the lights to have a direction of light. So for example, I see it down there in the stalks a little bit, but generally the light is like everywhere. So you're getting like, even though I love it, I think if you want to like create, like here's your bouquet and it looks like a bouquet that you can give to somebody. Think about where the stalks are coming into, like think about how it's structured a little bit more. And then also where the light is. Pick a direction where your light is. Keep it throughout your piece, even if you do the same style. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Welcome. Heike, let's have a look at yours.
Yes, please, please, please.
Oh, this is very lovely.
Nice.
I like the way that you have left it quite loose at the bottom, and I like your textures that you've got. It looks a little bit like it's sitting on a cone kind of thing, and the flowers are just propped in there. So I think really think about, like Patricia, like in between the flowers, what is there? And look at the negative space in between the flowers as well. Think about when leaves come into something, make them a little bit darker towards when they're coming in. Or if there's a shadow from one area on top of another. So for example, the leaves on the right hand side, maybe there's a little bit more shadow underneath the white flower so that the leaf sits behind it. Okay, so think about behind and in front, things that are back and things that are in the foreground. And then also like You can create a little bit more texture in some of your areas. And for example, the one that looks like a pineapple.
Yes.
Yeah, you can work, you've made lines, but you didn't work into the lines. So right now it looks like something which is hand woven and not natural because it's too perfect, the line.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Michelle, did you want to show?
I can always use more time. Mine looks like a tree, I think.
Oh, it's
No,
nice.
it's very pretty. I think what watercolors are you using, Michelle?
I'm using the Daniel Smith.
Okay. You can use a lot less paint.
Oh, there I go.
Oh, it's
Okay.
running. You can
It's
use,
running.
yeah, you can
Okay.
keep this. Okay. You can use a lot less pigments and more water. So when you're mixing
Okay.
your colors, just use a tiny little bit of pigment and more water. It doesn't mean that you need to make it wetter. It means that you need to dilute your colors a little bit and then
Okay.
work over the top because it looks like you've got a lot of pigment on your page. So try
Okay.
using less pigment for the first colors, and then you can go darker with your contrasts.
Okay.
Yeah. Dee, do you want to show? Thank you, Michelle. Oh, that's very pretty, see.
Very pretty.
Mhm.
So right now, see, it looks like you've got everything sitting on top of your like a handle of like all the stalks coming in, but it's very maybe, and it's probably because you need more time, but you can make it a lot darker down towards
The
where
bottom.
all the stalks come together.
Okay.
Right? And in between your flowers, again, it's the in between your flowers that you need to think about. It's the negative space. And that's going to help you a lot. So your negative space needs to be worked on so that like it'll make it a little bit more contrasting, but your flowers are going to pop out and they're going to be more individual.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Who else do we have? Beth, let's have a look at yours.
I'm gonna use bigger paper next
I
time.
love it. So sweet though.
Look at this. They look like witches' fingers.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yeah, use bigger paper because then you can
I
have
am.
like beautiful flows and yeah, you too with your direction of light, think about your direction of light.
Okay.
I know that your work is a little bit more graphic, but think about that next time. Even if there isn't a direction of light, even if it isn't like definitely one side, try and find it and make and emphasize it. So, you know, make one side a little bit darker, or and also
Okay.
look at your you did actually do well with your white flowers, but right now they look like little cotton balls, one on top of each other. So that's why I went in on mine and maybe did a little bit of definition to the petals.
Okay.
Yeah. And your stalks at the bottom, you can definitely differentiate them by putting more contrast in between them and a little bit more at the top. Yeah.
Awesome. Look, this is the back of a thank you card for this lady unsubscribed from my newsletter. And we used to be really good friends. And I was like, I'm gonna paint some ugly flowers.
Oh no. Yeah,
I didn't expect it to be a masterpiece. I'm learning, but this is really still really fun.
Okay, good. Try a bigger paper
Okay.
and a bigger brush. Hi, Alexandra.
Hello. I did mine
know
too
you
close
love-
to the other one.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So you're trying,
Because-
is it two different types of watercolors or the same?
No, it's the same.
Okay.
I thought the second one was practice, so I just, you know.
Okay, I love your first
pretty
one,
cool.
how you've blocked in all the colors, and that's something that I don't do. So everybody can, if you want to try what Alexandra did, she makes it wet and then it blends into one color and the other. And I can see evidently that you've left the little line so that it doesn't blend in some areas. I really love yours. I don't think there's too much that I can say, and I love the difference between the leaves in the background and the foreground. It's very pretty. Yeah, I think if anything, like maybe think about like looking at your colors and maybe using more different different greens, and maybe adding a little bit more yellows. And so having a look at the different values in your and tones in your greens and your, you know, would be lovely. But your colors are gorgeous anyway, so very nice.
Thank you very much.
Susan. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Um,
I know it's early for you guys, so thanks for
It's
joining.
early.
Oh, that's very pretty.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's
Oh,
beautiful.
wow.
Yeah, really, really lovely.
Great
I
dimension.
don't really think, like, I mean, little things like down where the handle is, you can maybe add a little bit more contrast and details.
Yeah.
But really, no, it's really pretty. And then the white flowers, see how you've put a lot of green on the top of the white flowers on the
Yeah.
top left.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know that's something you were probably just trying to cover, but yeah, things like that to think about when you're drawing it.
Composing.
Yeah, just to leave it.
Right.
Yeah, so I
Right.
think for the next one, just think about more textures within. I know you started it with the thistle, and I love the textures within that. And also that your flower on the left-hand side is really lovely, your beige and pink one. But the little flowers in the middle, maybe think
Yeah.
about more textures in those too, but really lovely.
Thank
Great.
you.
Okay, we're going to go to Jen.
Oh, mine's terrible. I had this huge piece of paper, but a very little bouquet.
Sweet.
Jen, which flower
sweet.
did you do? You did the,
I just picked a little from
oh,
here.
and you just took whatever you wanted from it. I see that. Yeah, think about, I see a lot of individual elements, and I think you have to think about it as one. So when you're painting, for example, the greens, try and fill out little areas, even if you don't. I think that's why, like, try and pick one bouquet next time.
Yeah.
And try and look at the bouquet instead of adding, and really focus on all the little elements that kind of come together and the negative space in between it. Because I see all your elements, but like things that connect in between are not there. So yeah, maybe have a think about that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I think that's everybody. Did I miss anybody? No. All right. Great. Okay, so we're going to start the next one. So Jen, you're the only one that's you're not going to venture out on this one. You're going to pick one and just, yeah, focus on that. Everybody else, I would love you to pick one, but then add to it. So I'm going to pick number 4. I'm going to eliminate, so add and eliminate. I'm going to eliminate all the white flowers in it, but I do like the 2 below and the background green. And then I'm going to, or maybe I'll take the first image. It's probably going to be easier. Take the first bouquet and add the green flower to the first bouquet. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'll sketch out the first bouquet and then add the beautiful green flower right here on the side. Oh, and I should probably spotlight.
Okay.
So I'm going
Can
to
you-
sketch this out. I'm going to sketch this one out, and then I'm going to add this green flower right here on the side here. So I'm going to add it. Okay.
Yeah. It has to
And
be a book. It
Go
has to
ahead.
be a book.
it does not have to be a bouquet. If you want to fill a page with beautiful florals, you can fill a page with beautiful florals. It does not have to be a bouquet. But today I'm focusing on the bouquet, just so that you get used to seeing me working from light to dark. Our next workshop, which is on Thursday, we're going to be working with gouache, and there'll be a lot of different flowers everywhere and filling up the page, and it won't be as much of a bouquet. So, but you, Patricia, you do you.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to use my kuritakis for this one. I'm still going to use my pan here because I don't have a mixing pan for my kuritakis. So I'm just going to lift up the green here. Clean this a little bit. I don't usually do, but this way I won't have any of my Winsor & Newtons in my mixing tray. Okay, so again, I will start by putting a little line so I don't go over, and a little line at the bottom, because that's where I want my the bottom to be of my bouquet. The handle of the bouquet, I think, comes probably 2/3 of the way up, or almost 3/5. And I am going to just sketch out the elements quickly. Then I'm going to add this beautiful green flower here on the right hand side. So now that I've got my sketch, I can show you closer up because you can see it's very, very simple. I don't think I need to do too much more than that. And then I'm going to look at my lightest color, or my color that's in the furthest area, which is this another yellow. And I'm assuming that the yellow flower in this one is similar to the one that's in here and the one that's in here. I think it's basically bridesmaids bouquets, and they are all made up of very similar flowers. So I'm going to put one back here, a yellow one, and then I'm going to work on my light pinks, and then I'm going to work on, which is also incorporated in these two branches in the back here, and then my greens, and then work with my darkest colors right at the end. So there are some lighter blues or some teals in the background here. So I haven't used my kuritakis much recently, but I'm going to try to work them. If you have kuritakis, you can use the white if you want to use the white. I'm going to try and stay away from the white because then they really do become very similar to gouache. So I really don't want them to be like gouache. There is a nice ochre in the kuritakis, which I'm adding to my yellow because that yellow is like fluorescent. And I'm just going to, like we did in the first one, just block in all my colors. Which is definitely a little bit more red.
Back.
Just need to water it down. So I'm making sure that I'm not going too dark with my colors right at the beginning.
That's odd for you, no?
Not go dark right at the beginning. No, with watercolors, I really am very careful with my layering. I don't know.
Mhm.
I've learned that it stings you, like with watercolors, if you're not
Yes.
especially if you want to work it so that it looks a little bit realistic, or if you want to have that big contrast, then you have to be careful, I think. And I think each medium is very different, right? Like you can approach subjects very differently in so many different mediums. You can try and bring the colors. I know that, for example, these colors here of this reddy orange, you can also see it down here in the stems or the stalks of the flowers. So try bringing it all the way down. Maybe that's a better way to connect them all in your bouquet, to have them come down into the handle of the bouquet. This is how I'm still working with this brush. This is what happens with me. A lot of times I get stuck in a brush and I don't change the brush, but I feel like if it can do what you want it to do, then you're not
Wait.
wasting time, right?
Yeah.
As long as the brush, and if it can hold water really well, like these big brushes are great for that. It holds a lot of water. You can get a lot done in one load of your, and I don't want to be like, I feel like I sound lazy not switching brushes, but it can give me a really fine tip and it can give me a nice wide stroke. So I'm like, why change it? Why?
But on the other hand, what if you're lazy? Doesn't matter.
I don't know. No, I
No.
think maybe it's, my parents always saying, don't be so lazy. Don't be, what are you watching TV for all the time? And now I'm not late. Yeah, I'm not lazy. I know that I'm not lazy, but maybe I'm just lazy in these
It's
kind
like
of choices.
one has to justify.
Yeah, maybe I'm just being efficient.
Exacto.
The
Very.
complete opposite of lazy.
Of lazy. Exactly. There you go. Solved.
Sold to the lady with the British Union Jack flag. Okay, so I'm mixing up a very almost like an old-fashioned, see these leaves on the right hand side, behind this big green one. They're almost like, you want to get the lightest color. You don't want to put the darkest color on yet. So make sure you add a lighter color, because you're not going to be using white over the top and creating texture like you would with gouache. So, and then I've just thought I have to think about the flower in the foreground as well. So I'm going to make note of that and put these leaves behind here. So this may still be a little bit too dark, but I'm going to go with it. Look at the shape of the leaves. Don't think, oh, it's a leaf shape, it must all be one way. All these really will change your bouquet and look like a whole bunch of real flowers and real leaves if you really pay attention to the shape of the leaves and the shape of the flowers that you're putting in. I'm going to add this big flower in the foreground, so it definitely needs to be a little bit more yellow. Like I did before, I'm just going to block it in a tiny little bit of white shape. Let that dry. Back to the first bouquet. I can take the green that I did here and add a couple of these leaves down here. I know I've added this big green flower in the foreground, but I still need to think what is around it and just not let those things, let them be forgotten about. So right now, mine is very, 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 very light. I'm going to go in between this area because there is some green behind here as well. And my yellow has dried. Once I've filled in all these white areas, I think I can start to put a little bit more contrast in my image. Not going to do any of these purple flowers yet, not until I put a little bit more detail on this yellow in the background. So I'm going to take my ochre, just give a little bit of texture to the flower in the background, because I won't be able to touch that until I won't be able to touch it again after I put the purple. Is that heather, the purple? It looks like
I think it's status or something called like status.
okay.
Mm.
It's used for
It's
dried
usually
flowers a
grown-
lot, isn't it?
Exactly, like
Yeah.
cornflowers. Yeah.
Mm. And I can take a little bit of this yellow also, and I'm going to put it down here. So I know for a fact I love my Winsor and Newtons much more than my Kuretake, but it's also good to try different things. These are a lot looser than my Winsor and Newtons. I do love the colors are more saturated, but I just have to make more of an effort to mix them and add the water so that I get the colors that I want to get. So I'm going to add my little baubles up here. Are they seeds or are they beginnings of, are they pods or what are they? What would you call them?
I think they're fruits, like sort of
Are they?
berries. I think
They're
they're
fruit?
used in dye.
Okay. Yeah, I knew somebody would know these things. Thank you, Alexandra.
Oh.
Are you a gardener, Alessandra?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I love garden.
In Paris too, or just Chicago?
More with the new house right outside of Paris. I'm basically taking a very old house and garden and cleaning it up completely and redoing it pretty much from scratch.
Oh, lovely.
That's the plan. I'm giving myself about 5 years.
Oh,
And then you sell it, or you're like, or then it's
No, and then you're all invited to come for tea and
yay.
drawing and painting.
pero 5 years is a lot of time to wait, oye.
We
Huh?
can come and help you. That would be a good
Yeah.
idea, right?
Thank you. I don't think
Yeah,
that
I
gardeners
didn't think about that.
You need some painting of rooms. I'll come and help you paint rooms.
That would be nice.
All right, so I know that I didn't need to do this right now, but I want to see where the light is. So for me, the light is going to come in from the right-hand side. Oh, actually, no, it can't come in from the right-hand side because this flower is going to come from like top left up here. So it's going to still catch this bit right here because there is this flower shading the left-hand side of this, but I'm going to come into this flower and make it a lot darker as now it is dry. and make sure that I the light in that direction. So the light is going to come top left, coming down here. So now I know that all my shadows are going to be bottom right underneath any leaves or these little areas as well. Think of, remember your negative space, the space in between your flowers. At the edge here like I did before. That'll blend it. And then if I have anywhere to put some green, I'm going to come back to the first image. At the shadow right here underneath the stalk, and you can see how that immediately gives it some form and shape. And if you don't want to do too much more on top of that, you don't actually need to. But what I'm going to do is just take this color and really lightly, you can even take, if you have like a little stick or something like that, if you have a pooling of water, you can just pull that water like to create a texture. Pull it there and then just take the stick and pull it over and around the area, because you can't really create that. You could with a brush, but it would just take forever to just make those little marks. So think of things that you can bring into your piece to create texture. I have a lot of these sticks lying around. Skewers are just fast. They're great. They're great for like sticking into acrylic bottles because they're not, they've closed up at the top, or things like this, creating textures within your pieces. And I know it seems like a little bit more finicky, but it really isn't. Like that's, you know, it's just a texture that you add, and then I can leave that. I'm happy with that. I'm going to take some of this green and add it to some areas, and I'm actually going to add some more of these leaves up here because I really do like them. So I'm going to add it behind this yellow. Green here. Shapes. This is where you make the piece your own, and you don't have to copy exactly what is on the photo, and you can just add little elements that you like from other areas. So I'm going to leave that to dry. I'm going to now come back into the left-hand side over here. I'm mixing up a green with a little bit of red. See how that mutes it. And I'm going to just, remembering where my light is, these are still wet, but I can just take it a little bit on the bottom here. Where my light is, I am putting the darker areas on the bottom underneath these little seeds or fruit. Then I need to add a tiny little bit of red for the other one on the other side. Probably have been brighter, I think, as well. I went a little bit too dark with this. Gonna work on this flower on the left-hand side. Just taking my red. It's nice and bright. So here, maybe I would, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet, like with my clean brush, just the centers of each of these petals. And with this red that I just mixed up, I'm going to add a little bit more red to it. I'm going to go right in here and let it bleed in this flower so that it creates a little bit more. It didn't bleed as much as I wanted it to bleed. You can always use a spray bottle as well to add some textures. But I am going to just take my paintbrush. I mean, it is bleeding a little bit, but I want it softer on some areas. So softer here, make it softer, softer on this one. Towards the bottom and harder towards the top there. I love this red, so I'm going to bring it down into these, the bottom of the stalks are, and also right in here. This is all going to be a lot darker, but I still want to add the red so that there is a little bit of a pop in there. Now I can work on the green again, coming in with a darker bluey green for this green flower on the right that I've added. Quite a lot of blue.
I think those berries are called pokeweeds.
Pokeweeds?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Did you look it up?
I did check, yes.
Just adding it so that I want it to be really nice and dark right in here. Another petal within the inside. And then I want to go back to the green, the light green, and just add any little line. It's obviously not enough. A little bit more green on the edges here. Leave it like that. Leave it like that and then come back. I have to add all these purples right now. Oh, and I am going to also put a little bit of darker shadow behind here before I add the purples, because the purple is going to go over this area. So maybe I will just take a little bit of this green that I have and add some texture in this one. Right, on to the purple. I have a really lovely light blue, which is one of my favorite blues, but it is a little bit opaque. I think that's okay. I'm going to add the purple, that, and then put this on here. Not as bright as I wanted it. I probably should have added this right at the beginning so that it would keep its brightness. I'm also going to take this purple on the side here where these leaves are, just to bring it into that side. And then I want to put a little bit of this purple in between green flower in the foreground and the leaves down here. And adding a little bit of texture as well, again. Now I need to mix up a very dark green, almost a black. I don't want to use black. And going to create, to me, they really do look like heather. It has the same kind of small branches with tiny, tiny little like feathery, it almost looks like feathers, the branches for these purple flowers. So I'm going to just get those in. I think my brush is way too loaded with paint. Really pooled on this. Adding a little bit of texture. This one I feel is definitely a lot freer, this image that I've done here. A little bit looser. This I'm making up on this side, so I'm adding a few of these little elements to the right hand side here, just to create a nice sharp edge for the green flower that's on the right hand side. So I'm just adding that to go over the top. And this same dark color, I want to pull down into the string or whatever, I think it's string that's wrapped around the stalks down here, and also in between the stalks that come into the string. This side a lot darker, so I'm going to darken side, and then also in between stalks down at the bottom, just going to give a little bit of contrast in between some of them. Some a little bit thinner, some of them a little bit thicker. Those pins that are probably keeping the string together again, I kind of like them in the image as well. And this, what were they called again, the seed thingies?
The pokeweed.
The pokeweed, yeah. I'm bringing that stalk all the way down through here. So there's that connection between this stalkweed and where it sits within the arrangement. It's bled slightly, so I'm going to make it slightly smaller because I want it to be nice and crisp. because I'm using this really dark blue, I'm going to use that on these stalks just to pull them in to the image. And put a little bit underneath each of the little seed, just a tiny bit. It's like my darkest contrast that I can add there. And on the left-hand side of the stalk. And this one, I don't think I need to add it. And I'm going to work a little bit on this flower here and be on the little stem stamens. Darkening that line all the way down here, giving it a little bit more form. Remember your negative space. What can go in between those areas? Squint your eyes and make sure you can see, or you don't see in between the areas. Like, see where there is, it needs to be a little bit more worked, and where you need to leave it. And probably add a little bit of texture to this flower here that I've got here. So I'm going to probably use that stick again, worked a little bit. So I'm going to mix up this color and then just put it along the side here on the edge. And just use it to a little bit. Remember, you can always take a dry brush and lift your paint off if you need to need less paint on your page. So if you've added something and you're not loving it, like I did just right here, and you can lift it and take it off with a dry brush in between the middle area here, the green flower. I like it a little bit better. I'm not sure about the edge here. Because I know that the light is hitting it, but there's probably some shadows from these areas on here. So I'm going to leave it to dry, and then I'm going to come back and work on those a little bit more. In the blue, I'm going to, or the bluey green, I'm just adding it slightly to some areas of these leaves. On some sides it's a little bit darker, so I'm going to add that almost like a glaze over the top. You know how when you're using your paintbrush and you lift it and there's a little ball of paint, if you're worried about that, just move it to an area on that object that you're not worried about it being a little bit darker. So for example, if I'm doing the leaves here, I don't really want to leave the ball of paint there. I'll take it into the middle, for example. So those are things that, you know, things that maybe you can think about when you're painting. Want to be super particular about it. So I was, oh, this is bleeding now. Leave that like that. So I think mine is finished. I don't really want to do too much more to it. This keeps bleeding, but what I'll do is once it dries, and I'll come back into it. We're doing for time. We have 10 minutes, so we can have a look at everybody's work. Everybody prefer your first one or your second one? You can see how my colors are quite, like, not super different, but there is a difference in the two colors. They
Oh, they're
work.
beautiful, Sean.
Mhm.
Thank you. So I would soften the edge, which I didn't do, of the rope. So even just so that it doesn't look like a whole bunch of lines down here, to soften edges here. All right, so let's look at, anybody ready to show, Patricia?
No, no, yeah. Yes. Yeah, ready for that.
Ah, yes. I think there's a little bit more,
Wow.
a little bit more structure here, definitely, but still
Beautiful.
you, which I love.
It's still everything in the same sort of. I changed this a bit. I don't know if you can
Yeah,
tell
show
the
us the other one as well. So I think the second one, hold it closer. Okay. Yeah. So similar, but I think there's more, I think because there's more things coming off of it, which are not, it's not as wild. I don't know if that makes sense. I think because did you draw it out first or not? No. It's hard because I love your style, so it's really hard to critique something that you really love, right? I think maybe if you had drawn the flowers so that you're really focused on the actual structure of each like element, maybe it would be different. Because your leaves are not defined, right? Like, so for example, the ones on the right hand side, these ones that I did on here, these
right.
each have a shape, right? So they each have a shape, even though, like, I know that they have a shape, but when you're looking at the photo and studying them, it's the same when you're looking at a plant. We're so used to being able to just thinking about a leaf being like oblong, right? So really look at like how big it is and the shape it is, but you can still do it in your style. Like at the top there with the little ones that I still can't remember the name. Yeah, those little seeds.
Milkweed.
Those are beautiful, right? Because they
Mm.
have a certain shape, and you've definitely looked at them in the piece, in the image. But I love the gestures that you get with yours. Like, I feel like you take yours to another level. This is how the bouquet looks, and that is like your level. Like, I love it. I love the movement of this flower that you've got is a lot more energetic in yours than mine, but it's still, I know that it's that flower, but maybe to draw it out and have the structure, maybe that's what you need a little bit more,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Thanks.
But I know that if you wanted to make like something look exactly like something, then you would, but you have your style. So I think it's nice to keep going with what you're doing, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, it's hard. Everyone knows Patricia's work. Like if you start changing work and being someone else, then that's not your work either.
Yeah, I suppose. But I want to be, I know that I can do it precise, but then I start puff, you know. So I don't know. Maybe I should.
And
just
maybe
don't
maybe you go free right at the beginning, but then tone it in and add some more defined lines that really correlate to the flowers that you see, right? So that if somebody was to look, they could say, oh yeah, that's a hyacinth, or that's a rose, or that's a
See, I would also with this, I
yeah,
would go with pencil and
yes,
define it.
yeah,
That's what I would.
yeah. And I think you're missing that.
Yes.
Yeah,
That
because
that's
you're
it.
used to the mixed media.
See,
So
I don't.
that's
I will see.
yeah.
I
So maybe
like
that's the only difference, is it's that last touch is making it more look like the flower, because you can do that with pencil quite easily. But if you try and do it with paintbrush, it's too controlled.
Yes. Yes. Well, I'll do it with a pencil anyway.
Okay.
See how.
Okay. And thank you, Patricia. Hi, Gil. Let's have a look at yours.
Yes, let me see.
Oh,
Mm.
lovely. Very nice, Heike. You have great movement in yours as well. It's very difficult to critique when I really like what you do. Maybe you could have put more more depth in the middle, like behind the green one, maybe make it a little bit darker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just look at,
Okay.
yeah, look at the because they're very, it looks like, you know, there's one branch here, one branch there, one flower here, but a bouquet, but you have a lot of stalks. So if you have a lot of stalks, you must have a lot more stuff in there. So maybe think about adding a little bit more to fill it out. But it's very very beautiful.
Thank
Very
you.
nice. Yeah. And I love your colors. What did you use? The
Oh,
Kurotaki?
everything.
Everything.
I really love those in the back that are like curly. That
Yeah.
looks so unique, like
Yeah,
what you did.
very sweet.
So cool.
You've
Oh, thank you.
definitely, yeah, you've used your brushes very well. Well done. Beth.
It got so bad that I had to use Neocolor.
No.
And
Why did you say it got so bad?
you didn't
You
see
went,
it before I put ink tints on top. Well, I got up to get my smoothie and I shouldn't have done that. But
it's that darn smoothie. No, but I think, okay, so with the flower that's off to the side, if you
mhm.
had brought that a little bit over and not had it just off to the side and kind of incorporated it within the composition and not,
Mhm.
do you know what I mean? Not separate everything.
Yes.
That's bringing it in as a whole, like, and that's where the bouquet, I was trying to get you guys to like look at the position where the things are and really work in behind things. And but you know, and you're like Patricia, you're used to using mixed media, so for you that lack of, you just went in and did it. But your
I
colors are great,
cheated.
Beth.
And it still looks bad.
No, it doesn't look
But
bad.
I've learned so much, like the negative space. I always am like, what do I put here? You know, when I'm trying to draw flowers.
Yeah.
So you're really helping me so much.
Yeah. Good. Well, the colors I think are great. You got great colors.
Thank you.
C, we're gonna go to you.
I'm still dabbing away.
Oh, lovely, C.
Penny.
Very
then
pretty.
I'll
You
put
two,
them
I will
side by
say the same as I said to Beth as well. Okay, so your first one, which was your first one?
yeah.
Yeah, you incorporated all the elements were kind of mixed together, which I really liked in that one. The
Yes.
next one that you did, you kind of separated everything. I know it was quite separate in the piece, but they're very separate. Like it's almost like you forgot to add elements in between.
Yes, and it looks like, I feel like it should be bigger.
Yeah, you could go bigger, maybe
Yeah.
add some things on the sides, but I do love your colors are great too.
Thank you.
And again, see, look at the real shapes that the photo holds of the plants, because like your images are very okay, so there's a leaf and then there's another leaf on top and another leaf on top, but look at the photo and the way that the branches, and does the leaf come out to the side or does it go vertical, or right? So really look at that as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you.
you're welcome. Alexandra. Oh,
Mm.
very pretty,
So pretty.
very pretty. I
Mhm.
really like your muted color palette. And can you hold it up a minute? Oh, is it running?
Yeah.
Okay, you can
It's
put
not
it down.
watercolor.
But okay, see, did you see her little lines of some of her like the fillers? They're all very different, like the directions that they go, and
Yes.
yeah. So that's really what I'm talking about when you're putting in little fillers. Don't just do them all the same, because nature is so irregular.
Okay.
Very pretty, Alessandra.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay, Susan. You guys, you're in California and you're cold. Or it's like
sad.
morning. It's
And-
like morning head.
I know
morning hair
it's
day.
morning. And I'm from the East Coast, which is even sadder. So I shouldn't be so cold.
Oh,
I
you're in the
struggled on
East
this
Coast,
one.
sorry.
Oh,
Oh,
I
that's
just-
beautiful.
Very
I just
pretty.
put the purple on it 2 seconds ago. It needs more depth, and I didn't like. I was more
Beautiful.
anal in a
Lovely.
bad
Your
way.
green
Yeah.
Mm.
flower is beautiful in the foreground. Really beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that completed. Very nice. Lovely
S-
colors.
thank you.
Great. All right, we're gonna go to Jen.
My hat's on because I woke up 5 minutes after class started and no one wants to see my hair. So I kept telling
It's
myself
fine.
to go big and
Yeah.
I went small again.
Oh, no, I love
Oh.
it. This one's very pretty.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Really
That's
gorgeous.
gorgeous.
Yeah, Jen.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
show us the first one again. Show us the first one. Oh, you got it on the back.
Oh yeah.
Jen, why'd you put them on the back?
Well, because it was so bad.
Oh, it wasn't bad at all. This one's very pretty. I really like
I
it.
worked a little wetter with this one, and that
Okay.
was helpful for me
Yeah.
to kind of bring it all together.
Yeah, very nice. Loved it.
Love the
Love it, love
shadows.
it, love it.
Very Japanese, like very
Yes, it is.
ikebana. I love
Yes,
that.
yeah.
I use the kurataki.
Yeah, the-
That's it then.
colors
There
are
you
great.
go.
All right. I think that's everyone, right? So on Thursday, we're going to be doing a little bit more free, not as contrived. But I think you have to understand, like, your elements don't have to all be the same. Like, really look at the difference of textures, and I hope you guys have learned a little bit. But I really love what you guys have done. So keep painting, and I will see some of you this afternoon. And if not, I will see you on Thursday for the gouache.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Sure.
everybody.
This
Oh,
is
do you
even
have
more
any
relaxing
questions?
than painting birds. It's amazing.
Yeah. We'll do, birds on Thursday as well. So birds and flowers. It'll be fun. Thank you so much.
Thank
Does anybody have
you.
any
Thank you.
questions?
Super fun.
Okay.
see you in a
Bye,
little bit.
everybody. Bye.
No.